All right, good Monday morning and welcome to today's daily video. and got several things to cover in this video, so it may last just a little bit longer than it has been. But I want to update you on everything that's going on, tell you about some things I have planned for this week, a little more information. So I'm going to start, as you see on the screen, with the assignments for today. Remember, if you have not watched the two grading videos from Friday, I put one up late in the afternoon with a few added caveats. It doesn't really, everything we talked about Friday morning, I talked about is still true, but there are a couple things I added, including some stuff I think you're going to like about if you meet these requirements, certain requirements, you're guaranteed to have an A for the second 9 weeks. If you meet these requirements, you're guaranteed to have a B for the second 9 weeks, and your 5 points is not calculated. There's also explanation about what grade's going to be in the computer this week, and you may be saying, what's that? Don't worry about it. That's just something legally we have to put in. I'm just going to copy in the first 9 weeks grade. Not going to go back over that. You can go back and watch the video on YouTube. Again, there's 2 of those. But that starts, as far as our agreement to what you have to do to get that A for the 9 weeks or that B for the 9 weeks, that begins in earnest today. Because one of the requirements is you have to participate, basically complete your assignment expectations, communication, stuff like that on a daily basis starting today. Now, there is some flexibility. I know things will be going on. Some of us have different things right now going on. And so how that's going to work is I'm still going to allow like a 48-hour flexibility schedule, which means if you've not done Monday stuff by Wednesday night, then technically you have not stayed on course to the expectations. So if you do Monday stuff Tuesday and Tuesday stuff Wednesday, as long as it's done by Saturday, Sunday, then you're good. Okay, but if you don't, and if there's some reason that you're not going to be able to, then you need to send me a message. I'll give you a great example. I talked to a parent the other day, said, well, we're going to be traveling some. Don't think we're going to be able to, this may be a little bit of an issue. And it was real simple. We were able to come up with a real easy solution, that there might be some stuff on the FRQs that I need to give a little bit more time for, but the student could easily on their phone watch all the YouTube videos, maybe even take a few notes and keep up with everything else along the way. So you need to reach out to me if it's going to be more than 48 hours before you get something done and say, hey, here's what's going on. What kind of plan can we develop here? But that, again, this expectation starts today. You'll watch this video. After this video, there's also going to be a review video on language and the language tree. Going to be making that here in just a few minutes. You do have an FRQ and AP Classroom today, so please complete that one. I put that up last night, I believe. Also, continue watching the study sessions. I'll put up the agricultural review that I put up last Wednesday. That video that's 2 hours long, I think. I'm going to put that back up because I told you to watch it in increments. Also, I'll put up the link to the AP Live session, I think session 2 maybe, of agriculture. Then something else that I want you to be thinking about, I ask you to get into virtual groups or have someone you can communicate with in some way, shape, or form. I want you to be thinking about of any of the stuff from the year, but particularly lately, that you have questions about. Tomorrow, if everything stays on plan, and I'll put out a message later today on Schoology with a little more detail, but I'm going to be attempting a Zoom conference with you guys tomorrow. Now, it is not, matter of fact, my plan is to do 2 so that, not everybody has to be in the same one. But if you can try to get into those, it's not mandatory, especially the one tomorrow. It's more to give us a chance to communicate a little bit more. This is going to be, I'm thinking, do one at 12 o'clock and then maybe another one at 1 or 1:30. But I'll let you know more about that. Later in the day. I'll send you out the link. And tomorrow's is going to be question and answer, but it's also going to be a test run, kind of be experimentally how this works. I know AP Government has done this. Talked to Ms. Story. She said it worked pretty well. I'll be asking her about any issues later today that they had so we can try to deal with that. So if something happens and you're not able to get in, don't panic tomorrow. We're not going to go over any new material. But if you got a chance to ask some questions, hey, can we get some help on this? Do you want me to explain grades a little bit more? That kind of stuff. It's going to be more of a question and answer segment tomorrow. Again, we'll do one at noon, hopefully, and then maybe another segment. If you want to be in both of them, you can. But maybe do another one around 1 or 1:30. But I'll be putting up more information on that front. So that is today's kind of thoughts and assignments for you. Again, grading expectations start today. Also, if you've not let me know about the groups, I have heard from a lot of people, but still not heard from everybody, what groups you're going to be in, who you're going to be working with this week to get some answers, questions. And you don't have to be in a group. Some people want to do it individually, and that's okay. But if you can still let me know, if you've not let me know that yet, that would be great. I might be checking in with some of you also on that. All right, I want to show you something that is very geographic in nature here. And if I can find it in the right spot. Good news is I'm having to look a little while because a lot of you have shared with me some FRQs to grade. So it's going to take me just a minute here. And all of a sudden I can't see it. All right, sorry about that. Anyway, what I was wanting to share, maybe I can, here we go. What I was wanting to share was this. This is from the state of Georgia, and they do something unique in reporting their COVID-19 cases. They have a map here of confirmed cases, and you can see the key at the bottom. And obviously, most of you would be well aware that this is Atlanta. And Atlanta obviously would be the most populated area of Georgia. You also see an area right down here, Dougherty County, that has a large population as far as confirmed cases. So nobody would be surprised to know. If you look at this map right here, you would think, okay, so the most cases in Georgia are in Atlanta. That's not a shock. It also is proof of hierarchical diffusion. But here's what's really interesting. Take a look at this. COVID-19 confirmed case rate per 100,000 people. Now, this map is very different than this map. So my question to you, and you can pause this and think about it, because this is the kind of FRQ that I think you're going to have on the test. Okay, not that it'll be about COVID-19, but this type of thing you really can't look up. This map shows us something, and this map seems to show something else. What is different about the two maps? So how would you phrase, what is the difference in the two maps? What kind of scale has changed? Geographic scale has not changed because this is still at a county scale. But the scale of the data has changed. On one, we're looking at total, the one above, we're looking at total number of cases. On this one, we're looking at cases per 100,000 people, excuse me, by county. So which of these two maps is more valuable for us learning about hotspots for COVID-19 and where it has diffused more rapidly? Pausing so you can think about it. Because again, this is the kind of question you may see. It's a very geographic question. I hope you would answer when it's either this map or this map, which one is more valuable for the rapid spread of COVID-19? The answer is this one is more valuable because this one tells us per person, and the ratio per person helps us understand the total spread of the virus better instead of total cases. Because you can have some county down here that's rural and has a very small population, and if everybody was sick in that county and had the virus, that still might not show up in comparison to Atlanta because there's so many people there. But here, this tells us a different story. It also shows us, notice the concern about this southwestern corner of Georgia, which is how you would want to put that on an FRQ, southwestern corner of Georgia. There is concern here, but there's something else here. This is part of the African-American belt that is the Deep South. So in these more rural areas that are dominantly African-American, there is an intense rate of COVID-19 percentage-wise, which brings back to some things you might or might not have heard on television, that African-American populations are suffering from COVID-19, and Hispanic ones are too, at a higher rate than others. Now, there are some things that would be expected in that as far as the risk of people in poverty, and a lot of these places have high poverty, but it is a really high proportion. So what this does by changing not the geographic scale, but the data scale, the scale of data, is it allows us to see more detailed information about the average number of people who are coming down with the virus. Okay, so this is the kind of questions, again, I think you're going to see on the FRQ. So I wanted to share this. And then this is one in a 2-week period. The cumulative and active COVID-19 cases. This shows us very clearly this is where Georgia better be worried about the most. In other words, Atlanta still has its problems, but it seems to be calming down some there. But really the hotbed now is southwestern Georgia. All right, and so if we use these maps that we've been presented with, which one helps us understand what hospitals are at the most crucial, needing supplies and kind of staying on their toes? I think that's pretty easy because, one, Atlanta is going to have a lot of hospitals, but these areas in southwestern Georgia, probably not. And they are a hot spot right now for COVID-19. So I thought that was a great geographic review. Wanted to go through that with you. And also, while we're talking about that, I wanted to mention something else. And that is, I mentioned last week that we're going to start, one of the requirements this week about, again, your grades is some exam-like FRQs that you will do at a certain time. So I'm going to explain more of that on the Zoom tomorrow for you. And you will have your first one of those FRQs assigned either tomorrow or Wednesday. I've developed a couple and I'm working on others. And you're going to do it through Schoology. I'll go ahead and tell you that. And with that, we can put a timer on Schoology that'll automatically kick you out when the time is up. And everybody will not have to do it at the same time. That's the good thing about using Schoology. So we'll be talking about that on the Zoom tomorrow. These are some FRQs where you really can't look up the answer. And that's what we've got to start making sure we practice more of. So what we'll do is you'll probably have at least a couple of those this week. I'll continue to assign FRQs in AP Classroom. Every day, the minimum expectation is you'll complete at least one FRQ. And if we get one of these in Schoology, you have to do that one. If you want to do another one in AP Classroom, that is also your prerogative. I will assign one there in case you want that. But I'll explain more about that on Zoom. I know that may be real confusing right now. But on the Zoom tomorrow and then maybe through Schoology, if we have some issues, I'll try to get that information a little clearer out to you. Let's move on to our new material of the day. There is not a lot of new material left. My plan this week is to add like little segments of new material each day, along with a heavy dose of review. So as we continue to talk about agriculture in your notes, I have basically outlined a note section for you so that you might add detail to this, but this is the kind of the general outline that you'd probably want to use. We've talked about some challenges to modern agriculture. As far as commercial farmers, crop prices are real low. They're producing so much. They've brought prices down that people complain about how they treat animals. They complain about sustainability. We've talked about subsistence farmers struggling with all kinds of problems. But this is more of a consolidated list of challenges that just farming, agriculture today faces on the whole. Because I don't know on the FRQ, on the AP test, if they're going to ask you just about subsistence, just about commercial, or if they ask you about it all together, because the answers will be different if they do that. So today, I want to present you the challenges that modern agriculture faces. Tomorrow, we'll talk about some of the solutions, but my suggestion to you is as a way of helping your studying is you try already in your notes and just using your mind of what you can think of, what solutions do you think there are out there for these problems in our world? So here are 6, and I'm not saying these are the only ones, but 6 of the major challenges of modern agriculture. Take a look at the last part of the chapter on agriculture in your textbook too. That will help with this. If you need to go back and read parts of that section or so, that'd be great. Number 1, a loss of land. Now that doesn't mean that we have physically lost land, although we have lost some in some areas around waterways, high water levels in places like Indonesia and others. But the bigger reason we have lost land is growing population. We all know about that. It's still growing exponentially, but slower than it used to be. And with a growing population, larger urban areas, larger cities. Cities are taking up land. Suburbs are taking up land that used to be farmland. Both of those things compromise land that farmers used to use. You see it here in East Tennessee. A lot of you live on land that used to be a farm. Think about it. Some of you know you do, and some of you may not know, but you probably do. And then, don't forget about this one, desertification. Desertification is the growth of the desert. Land that maybe you were able to raise animals on it. They could eat the type of vegetation that was there. But because of a drier condition and too many animals grazing on that land, like in the Sahel region of Chad and Sudan and parts of Nigeria and Africa, what used to be able to raise animals on is now a desert. The desert has grown. Now, a great question. We could stop and review here. What kind of agriculture, what type, is most susceptible to desertification? As I pause. I hope that your answer would be nomadic herding, because nomadic herding uses land typically for that's on the edge of a desert. So that's what the one that would be most in danger. We kind of already talked about that. So loss of land is a big thing. Now, it's not just loss of land, though. It's also loss of some of our best land. And I did not make another category for that. I probably should have. Let me just go ahead and do it. Loss of high quality land. In the United States, we are more concerned with which? One or two? Easily. Number two is our bigger concern. Our suburbs, places in California, for example, as the suburbs are growing toward the eastern part of the valley where there's farming, lots of farming, they're taking up land that used to be the best for fruits and vegetables. And the farmers are moving further east where it's dry, which means they have to irrigate more, which causes more sustainability issues and environmental potential issues. So the loss of high quality land and the loss of land are really two different things. Okay. Number three, challenge in agriculture around the world is there are more people to feed. There's more people living in the world today than there was yesterday. And that's going to continue, thanks to demographics early in the year, that's going to continue for at least a few hundred more years before we kind of hit a flattening, so to speak, of the curve that we're all familiar with now. But there's more people to feed, so we have to find ways to produce more food. You know what Boserup said about that. You know what the technocrats said about that. You know what Malthus said or didn't say about that. And we have, for the most part, through the years, been able to produce more food. Can we keep doing it? Will technology continue to allow us to stay ahead of the curve? Your curve a lot, but will it allow us to do that? Or, number four, are the ways we have used in the past causing sustainability problems? Are we draining our water reserves in areas that are not very wet to begin with? Are we draining our resources, and are we using up land that's not designed to be used for what we're using it for? If that's the case, then there are people who believe, neo-Malthusians, that we're going to run into some big problems in the future. And therefore, we think we're, ahead of the curve, but then all of a sudden we're going to run out of water in places and we're going to pollute the ground. Production's going to go down, and oh boy, we got a big problem. We'll see. 5, criticism of farm pollution goes hand in hand. The more and more critics around the world, not only of pollution, but the way we treat animals on commercial farms, or that some do, not everybody, or the health, the lack of health issues that are directly addressed on commercial farms, that is something also being dealt with today. Balancing trade with subsistence, number 6. This is more for the less developed countries that are trying to feed their families, but also produce a crop, cash crop, that their government can benefit from. And where do you draw that line? And then don't forget drug crops. Throw that in there as another caveat. They're going to be very enticing. They obviously don't help feed the world, though. So this is going to be it's a balancing act, and it's a challenge. And then number 7, the number of people that are undernourished. The number of people that are undernourished. Our percentage of people in dire poverty has went down in the last 20 years. but the number of people in dire poverty is still going up. Remember, understanding the growth curve versus the total curve. Because our population is growing exponentially, we can decrease the percentage, but increase the total number. Like recently in Tennessee, we have been increasing the total number of COVID-19 cases, but our percentage of growth of COVID-19 cases has been going down, which is a good thing. We're starting finally to see our total numbers going down. That's the same thing that happens with population when you think about that. So notice how great of a time this is to review demographics and population as it relates to agriculture. And kind of your assignment, part of your assignment in studying for tomorrow is, how does these problems get addressed? Okay, and we'll talk about that tomorrow.